Praise the Lord, my beautiful blessed souls. Come take a walk with me. Here we go. Ruth chapter 2. It's going to be lengthy. It's going to be a blessing. We're getting into it. Let's do it. Now, the word of the day, because it is Wednesday, June 17th. And we're going to go into God promises, and we're going to get into this, and it's going to make a lot of sense. How should God promises change the way that I live? When you are convinced that God is able to do anything He promises, then the troubles of this world are put in perspective. Because you know that your future for all eternity is secure, this gives you peace no matter what happens. When you are absolutely convinced that God will keep His promises, you will follow them without hesitation. Now, Romans 4:18 through 21. I'm not going to read it. It's a little lengthy. Hebrews 6:18, but I will show you it, and we're going to see how it ties into the message, because with this situation, it's going to tie right on into it, right on time. So this is June 17th, as we can see. Okay, now let's get into it, because God keeps His promises, His oaths, His vows, even when we don't. So let's look at it. So now, Naomi had a relative of her husband's, a worthy man of the clan of Elimelech, whose name was Boaz. And Ruth the Moabite said to Naomi, "Let me go to the field and glean among the ears of grain after him in whose sight I shall find favor." So now, we're going to look into this. Was this something they planned? Could be. Was it a part of God's plan? We're going to look at that in His promise. We're going to look at it. And she said to her, "Go, my daughter." So she set out and went and gleaned in the field after the reapers. And she happened to come to the part of the field belonging to Boaz, because we're going to look at that as well, what gleaning means, what reapers mean. We're going to look at all of these things in the end, I promise you. And so then what happened was, she said, and behold, so she set out and went gleaning in the field with the reapers, and she happened to come to the part of the field belonging to Boaz, who was of the clan of Elimelech. So, and behold, Boaz came from Bethlehem. And she said to the reapers, "The Lord be with you." And they answered, "The Lord bless you." Then Boaz said to his young man who was in charge of the reapers, "Whose young woman is this?" And the servant who was in charge of the reapers answered, "She is the young Moabite woman who came back with Naomi from the country of Moab." So she said, "Please let me glean and gather among the sheaves after the reapers." So she came, and she has continued from early morning until now, except for a short rest, is what he said. So we're going to look at that, because we want to know what gleaners mean. We want to know if this was planned. Okay, so now we're going to go into... I'm writing it down because I'm going to make sure I get it. Okay, so now, then Boaz said to Ruth, "Now listen, my daughter, do not go to glean in another field, or leave this one. There's reasons for that. But keep close to my young women. Let your eyes be on the field that they are reaping, and go after them. Have I not charged the young men not to touch you? And when you are thirsty, go to the vessels and drink what the young men have drawn." Then she fell on her face, bowing to the ground, and said to him, "Why have I found favor in your eyes, that you should take notice of me, since I am a foreigner?" But Boaz answered her, and he said, "All that you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband has been fully told to me, and how you left your father and mother and your native land and came to the people that you did not know before. So may the Lord repay you for what you have done, and a full reward be given to you by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to be taken refuge." Then she said, "I have found favor in your eyes, my Lord, for you have comforted me and spoken kindly to your servant, though I am not one of your servants." And at mealtime, Boaz said to her, "Come here and eat some bread and dip your morsel in the wine." So she sat beside the reapers, and he passed to her roasted grain, and she ate until she was satisfied, and she had some left over. Now when she rose to glean, Boaz instructed his young men, saying, "Let her glean even among the sheaves, and do not reproach her. And also pull out some from the bundles for her, and leave it for her to glean, and do not rebuke her. So we're going to look at that. Why? Because we want to understand what this means, what it's all about. So she gleaned in the field until evening. Then she beat out what she had gleaned, and it was about an ephah of barley. And she took it up and went into the city. Her mother-in-law saw what she had gleaned. She also brought out and gave to her what food she had left over after being satisfied. And her mother-in-law said to her, "Where did you glean today, and where have you worked? Blessed be the man who took notice of you." So she told her mother-in-law with whom she had worked and said, "The man's name with whom I work today is Boaz." And Naomi said to her daughter-in-law, "May he be blessed by the Lord, whose kindness has not forsaken the living and or the dead." I want to know what that means too. Naomi also said to her, "The man is a close relative of yours and of our redeemers." And Ruth the Moabite said, "Besides, he said to me, you shall keep close to my young men until they have finished all of my harvest." And Naomi said to Ruth, her daughter-in-law, "It is good, my daughter, that you go out with his young women, lest in another field you will be assaulted." So this is why. So we're going to look at this. So she kept close to the young women of Boaz, gleaning until the end of the barley and wheat harvest. That is very important. And she lived with her mother-in-law. So now we're going to get into the story, because that's what was, started out. And what is going to, okay, so 10 years prior, right, going back, an Israelite family fled a famine in Judah and settled in Moab, and the father died, and the mother Naomi found local wives for her sons. Not long later, her sons died, and when Naomi heard that the famine had ended, she resolved to return to Bethlehem. Her daughters-in-law insisted on accompanying her. When Naomi explained how much easier their lives would be if they stayed, Orpah agreed. Ruth didn't. Naomi's friends were glad to see her again when she came, but her bitterness dragged her into despair. Now, in Ruth 1, in this chapter, Naomi finds hope again. Ruth 2 begins with introduction that sets the stage. The narrative reveals that the presence of the man named Boaz, who is the same clan as Naomi's husband, back at home, Ruth requests Naomi's permission to glean barley behind the harvesters. As Ruth seeks an owner who will show her favor in her work, she happens upon a field owned by Boaz. Now, sometime during the day, Boaz appears to check on the harvest. He sees Ruth and asks his foreman who she is. Word has gotten around the small town, of course, and when the servant mentions that Ruth came with Naomi back home, Boaz realizes that she is the Moabite woman who abandoned her own country, people, and gods for an Israelite widow. So Boaz determines that such a sacrifice deserves a response. He insists that Ruth gleans only from his fields so she will be safe. He orders his harvesters to intentionally leave out the stalks from the bundle so she can gather more. And he invites her to lunch as if she were one of his servants. Ruth is overwhelmed by his kindness. Now, at day's end, Ruth has harvested and threshed nearly 6 gallons, about 24 liters of barley grain. Naomi is shocked at the amount and realizes Ruth must have a benefactor, sponsor. Someone's helping her. So when Ruth mentions the man's name, Naomi reveals that Boaz is one of her husband's kinsmen redeemers. Beyond the provisions of food, Naomi is even more grateful that Boaz has taken precautions to protect Ruth. Why? Because foreign widows working in the field face more dangers than just starvation. Why? We heard about the assaults. Okay, so now the last verse provides a summary statement of the following weeks. Ruth not only gleans for barley, but she also stays for the wheat harvest as well. At night, she returns to Naomi in Bethlehem. Meanwhile, her continued loving kindness toward Naomi is not going unnoticed. Excuse me. Now, by the end of the harvest, the women likely have enough to live on for a year. So this is the purpose, so that they have provisions. So even so, they realize that Boaz can provide more than grain if he is willing. So Naomi is thinking about Ruth's future. Here we go. A mother-in-law that really wants the daughter to actually be okay. She suggests that Ruth go to Boaz in a way that is essentially asks him to care for her. Naomi has also told Ruth that Boaz is a kinsman redeemer. That means he can buy Naomi's husband's land and give Naomi the money to live for the rest of her life. So this is why, because that is her land, but because she's a woman, she has no rights. So we're looking at this is why. So it makes a lot of sense. He could also provide a son to carry on her husband's name. Ruth also asks Boaz to fulfill this role. Now, commentators such as those at the Bible Project point out that chapter 2 and 3 have the same organization. They start with Ruth and Naomi planning, but progress to an interaction with Ruth and Boaz and finish with Ruth and Naomi waiting to see what will happen next. Chapter 2 sets the stage, and in chapter 3, Ruth will invite Boaz to provide more than just grain. In chapter 4, and Boaz will accept this role as the vessel through which God has chosen to bless this woman. In the process, he becomes the great-grandfather of King David. So let's look at this. Okay, let's get into it because it's a lot to unpack. This is scarcely like any other chapter in the sacred history that stoops so low as this to take cognizance of so mean a person as Ruth, or poor Moabish woman, widows, so mean in action her gleaning corn in neighbors' fields, and the minute circumstance thereof. But all this was in order to her being grafted into the line of Christ and taken in among his ancestors, that she might be a figure of espousals of the Gentile church to Christ. This makes the story remarkable, and many of the passages of it instructive and very improbable. Now here we have Ruth's humility and industry in gleaning corn. Providence directed her to Boaz's field, and the great favor which Boaz shows to her in many instances, and also the return of Ruth to her mother-in-law. So now we're going to look at this and break this down because there's so, like I said, so much to unpack. So now, everyone think this is just a wonderful, cute little story, but there's a lot in this little, like I said, Ruth. The book of Ruth is only 4 chapters, but this is going to be the engrafting of the Gentile church nations into the Israelites. Okay, so now here's the deep whole life breakdown of Ruth chapter 2. We're covering the people, places, and things, all dimensions, meaning we're going to look at the mental, emotional, physical, financial, and spiritual realms, past, present, and future, and the meanings thereof. So now, Ruth chapter 2. Core story, simple summary. Ruth is a Moabite woman. She's a widow. She goes out to glean, collect leftover grain, meaning in the fields to provide for herself and Naomi. She happens to work in the field of Boaz, a wealthy relative of Naomi. Boaz noticed Ruth learns about her loyalty to Naomi, and he treats her with favor, protection, and kindness. He lets her gather more grain, protects her from harm, and feeds her. He ensures extra grain is left out for her. Ruth returns home with abundance, and Naomi realizes this, that Boaz is a kinsman redeemer, a man who can restore their family line and their security. Now, we're going to look at the breakdown of Ruth, Naomi, Boaz, and the workers. Now, Ruth, she's a person, she's the role of faithful widow, meaning she represents loyalty, humility, and obedience. Now, Naomi, she's bitter but a wise mother-in-law. She represents experience, restoration, in progress, right? So, Boaz, he represents the wealthy redeemer, represents provision, grace, Christ-like character. And the workers, they're field laborers, they represent community, watching, and responding. Oh, please don't come here with this because I don't have time to talk to her right now when I'm trying to do this. Places. Bethlehem is a house of bread. Good night. Places. Bethlehem is a house of bread. It symbolizes provision and restored. Field of Boaz is a place of opportunity and divine alignment. 201. Things. Key symbols here. The barley is a field, meaning provision, survival, early harvest, meaning the beginning, new beginnings. Gleaning is grace. It is leftovers. It's leftovers given to the poor. This is very important because remember we discovered that. We talked about that before. When God, gave provisions for the poor, where they were supposed to leave a certain portion for the poor, no matter who they were, to be able to eat. Remember, he gave that to them in Deuteronomy, I believe it was. Grain and ephah is abundance beyond expectation. So now we got Bethlehem, which is the house of bread, the field of Boaz, which is a place of opportunity and divine alignment. So we're going to look at this mental thought patterns. Ruth shows initiative. Let me go to the fields. Humility. Why have I found favor? Work ethic. She labors all day. She didn't care. Naomi shows discernment. She recognizes Boaz's role. She shifts from bitterness to hope. The lesson right here is right thinking equals humility, and action plus awareness equals of opportunity. Now, emotionally, Ruth is faithful despite her loss. She's grateful and not entitled. Naomi, She moves from emptiness to encouragement. Boaz has compassion. He is respectful and generous, meaning healing begins when kindness interrupts struggle. Now, physically, she works long hours gathering the grain. Boaz provides food, water, and rest. The reality of it is survival requires hard labor. Lesson is God often provides through effort plus opportunity. It is not through passivity. Financially, Ruth and Naomi are in poverty, meaning dependent on gleaning. They have no men to take care of them. They have no children. It's just them two. Boaz, he is a wealthy landowner with resources. The key shift is from barely surviving to overflow and abundance of rain. This is the poor thing. Meaning is faithfulness and right alignment. Provision increase, not instant riches, but progressive stability. A lot of people don't see that. We need to look at that because sometimes it may not be, we just boom, no, it may be a gradual situation. Now, spiritually, God is never directly seen, but clearly working behind the scenes. Remember, this is what we're talking about in this chapter, okay? We're talking about God's promise. Now, so Ruth leaves her past, meaning Moab. She trusts God, she trusts Israel, and trusts God. So Boaz honors God in how he treats people. Remember how you treat people now. Naomi, she begins recognizing God's kindness again. Key spiritual truth is God's favor often looks like coincidence at first. Right. Time dimension, past, famine, loss, death, husbands are gone. Ruth is an outsider. She's a Moabite. She's not an Israelite. Her past equals brokenness, lack, and displacement. Now, present, chapter 2. Ruth works, she meets Boaz, she receives unexpected favor. Naomi identifies this opportunity, meaning this is a great divine connection, a visible situation for provision for them is presented. Opportunity. Future, foreshadowing. Boaz will become the Redeemer. Ruth will become part of the lineage of King David and Jesus. Their poverty will turn into legacy. Future equals restoration, legacy, and generational blessings. Now, the main meanings, big lessons here is faithfulness creates favor. Ruth didn't chase blessings. She stayed loyal and she worked. Favor just happened to find her. And this is how this happens. People seem to think, oh, no, just, this is how this happens. Position matters. She happened into Boaz's field, but it was a divine placement. Being in the right place at the right time matters, especially spiritually and practically. Now, kindness changes lives. Boaz's generosity shifts Ruth and Naomi's entire future. One person's kindness can equal another person's breakthrough. This is why we have to be careful of which path we choose. Do we choose to do evil wickedness or to be a blessing to people in their lives? Do we choose to send them curses, hexes, spells, and evil wickedness? Or do we choose to send them blessings, kindness, love, gentleness? There's a big difference. Provision, it comes in stages. First, survival and gleaning. Then favor and extra grain. Later, redemption, marriage, and restoration. God builds step by step, not all at once. Outsiders can become chosen. Remember this. Ruth, she is a foreigner. She becomes central to God's plan. Her background does not limit her destiny. So now when we look at the whole life integration, dimensionally, the mental take is the messages to take initiative and stay humble. Emotionally, it says healing comes through connection. Physically, work plus opportunity, they go together. Financially, faithfulness attracts provision. Spiritually, God works behind the scenes. Past is brokenness doesn't disqualify you. Present is alignment reveals favor, and your future is small steps lead to legacy. Bottom line, Ruth chapter 2 is all about how ordinary obedience in day-to-day life and divine timing equal extraordinary transformation. Now, it shows how hard seasons can turn, how right connections matter, how God's plan is already in motion, even when life looks uncertain. So now I had some questions and I was like, Lord, just let me see. I want to understand this chapter. I want to break it down and I have a lot of questions, so let's get into it. We're going to pull all of the tidbits that we don't understand and try to understand them. This is what we do, right? I'm quite sure I don't be having these questions myself, but anyway. So now I wanted to look at the gleaning and the system behind it. Gleaning system is survival and hidden grace. What gleaning really means, poor people, especially foreigners and widows, were allowed to gather leftovers after the harvesters. This was not charity. It was a built-in mercy in God's law. So now they were able to work, meaning go out and gather. So remember, because those who don't work don't eat. So God provides for those who try to provide for themselves. He is not about laziness. He's not. He don't mind taking what little you have and multiplying it. But you have to put forth the effort, because faith without works is dead. So now, Ruth is what? A foreigner. She's widowed and she's at risk of starvation, her and Naomi. So gleaning is the lowest level of provision, as people who are like, just fortunate. This is like homeless people. So the lowest level of provision, but still protected. So now, warnings and dangers. Ruth's situation had real risks. Why? Because behind harvesters, these are vulnerable positions. So that means she's behind the harvesters, the people who are out there harvesting his land. This is his land. But remember, this is not just his land. This is Naomi's husband's land. But because she's a woman, she can't come redeem it. She needs him to do it. So other men, risk of assault and exploitation. This is why it's very, very dangerous for her to be out there. But if they don't work, they don't eat, right? So she has to do something. They have no husband, they have no children. So this is what this is. They're widows. Foreign widow, meaning outsider. She has no social protection. So of course, at the end of the day, she would be one of the targeted women to be raped or assaulted or whatever. Starvation, urgency to survive. They have to do something. There's no land that they have. There's no husband. There's no covering. There's no ownership. So Boaz specifically says to her, stay in my field. I have told the men not to touch you, meaning that means harm was a real possibility. So because he told them specifically not to touch her, she was safe. Now, when we get into the sheaves, stalks, barley, and wheat, I wanted to know what this meant. Barley versus wheat. Barley is the first harvest. It is the early survival level. Wheat is a later harvest. It's a fuller, more valuable. Now, chapter 2 covers the beginning of the end of the harvest season, right? So this symbolizes the barley, or barely enough. Then we get into the wheat, which equals increase in provision, because she stayed for both seasons. She was at the end of one and the beginning of the next. So the sheaves and the extra stalks, right? The workers bundles grain into sheaves. So this is how this works. So Boaz command them to pull out the stalks and leave them for her. So this is intentional favor. Ooh, won't he do it? God will do it. This is not leftovers. Now the key shift is from gleaning scraps to receiving provision on purpose. So this is her overflow. So not only is she giving provision, she's giving enough to save and store for future, meaning so that they won't run out. So she seeks an owner, a covering and belonging. Ruth is not just gathering food. She is looking for alignment. She's entering a field tied to her future. Spiritually, she moves from ownerless, under authority, from random field to appointed field. God has his way. Remember his promises. Now, the kinsman redeemer mean clans, land, and name. What it means is a kinsman redeemer is from the same clan, has legal right to restore. Restore what? Land, family lines, protection, and inheritance. This is why this is so important. Boaz is not just anybody. He's the one that could really help them in their situation. So Boaz is not just generous. Legally, he's positioned to change everything in their life. Right. So now the lunch date, immediate provision. Boaz gives Ruth bread, roasted grain, and enough to eat and take home. This is important, not just a future promise, it is present care. God provides, don't he do it? Daily needs now, bigger solutions later. Now, threshing. This is what I was wondering. Grain must be threshed and prepared. So what Ruth carries isn't ready seed, it must be processed. Just like her life is being processed. Symbolism, what you receive still needs refinement before fullness. Now, that says a lot. Women, widows, and protection. Key focus in this chapter is don't curse and or exploit vulnerable women. Protect them instead. This is what we don't see a lot of nowadays, but this is what God intended. Boaz represents a man who uses power to cover, not to harm. See, this is where leadership, especially manlyhood, priesthood is. It's not to harm the women and children, those who are less vulnerable and more out there and exploit and oppress them. No, we see in this culture, day and age, this is what men want to do: oppress and harm women and children. That is sad. That is not their job. God never called them to do that. He called them to be the protector and the cover, the one who protects and provides, not the one that they need protecting from. Now, in contrast, danger from men versus protection from Boaz. This is what this is about. Boaz shows that he is a manly man. He is not running around here looking for a woman to take care of him. He is a leader. He is one who's going to lead, provide, and protect. He's not here to harm. He's here to redeem. He didn't have to be nice or kind to any of them, but he was, because this is just who he is as a man. Now, husbands, land, children, the ultimate restoration loop. Everything in Ruth 2 is leading to the restoration of one. Loss of what? Their husband. She lost her husband. Future restoration will be Boaz through marriage. Land, redeemed inheritance, right? Whatever was lost. And children, the line to be continued on through the bloodline. Obed is the child she's going to eventually have with Boaz, which will lead to David, King David, which will also lead to the lineage of Jesus. So now the beginning, the end of the harvest. Ruth stays through the barley harvest, and then she stays into the wheat harvest, because that was the end of the barley, but beginning of wheat. This shows consistency. She had endurance and not quitting after her first blessing. Blessing grows over time, not right away. Storage, provision that lasts. Ruth brings home large amounts of grain, about an ephah. This is more than daily survival. So God is blessing them even in their time of need. This is what he do. He provides. He keeps his promises. And moving towards stability. Now, it may not seem like much at the time, but for people who are out on the street, the homeless, who do not have a whole lot, whatever God is bringing for them, for their daily bread, for them to eat and live, along with anything extra they have to see if they're going to steward it properly, to keep it in the times of need further down the line, right? So now, God always blesses those who know how to be good stewards. Even in the times of little, you're supposed to be saving and storing, just like the ants. Now, full flow. Key word for this chapter is connected. Starvation, risk. This is why there she's gleaning. Gleaning behind the harvesters is lowest position. Danger from others. Enters Boaz field in alignment. Receives protection, meaning no harm. She gets lunch, meaning immediate provision. She's given extra stalks. Favor increases. Gathers from the beginning to the end of a harvest. Consistency. She stores grain. Stability begins. Naomi identifies her redeemer. Her future is unlocked. Deep meaning altogether, God builds from survival, security, and legacy. Gleaning, extra grain, and redemption. Position plus covering changes everything. Same work, different field equals different outcome. Protection is part of the blessing. Favor without safety isn't complete. Provision comes in layers. Behind harvesters, beside workers, and then from the owner himself. Redemption is the end goal. Everything points to a husband, land, and children. Why? So that their name can be restored. Why? The bloodline that they have can continue. Bottom line to this whole system, Ruth 2 shows how a vulnerable outsider moves through danger, labor, and alignment into protection, provision, and eventual redemption through a kinsman redeemer within her own clan, transforming starvation into legacy. So now we're going to break this down. Why? Because this is what this is all about. God creates family, he creates man and white, women and children. Why? For legacy, for the bloodlines to continue, for all of these things to be blessings and not curses. Now, we're going to look at the contrast. I wanted to find out husband meaning owner. So we're going to look at this. And it owner meaning more than just a husband. Was she looking for a husband or owner? Meaning, right. So in Ruth's situation, owner includes three connected roles. One, the field owner, Boaz, and literally he owns the land. So he controls everything, meaning the food supply, her protection, and her access to it. So at this stage, Ruth is under his authority, but not yet in a relationship. So it didn't matter what was going on. He's the one in charge. So yes, at this point, this is what's going on. Her covering and her protector. In that culture, a woman without a husband had no legal covering, was exposed to danger and as well as poverty. So an owner also means one who takes responsibility, one who provides safety and dignity. This is why Ruth seeks an owner. Why? Equals she is seeking stability, protection, and belonging. And this is what women and what men is supposed to be doing for women. This is what this is all about. Why? Because people think, oh, when they talk about being a provider and protector, it's more than just physical and financial. It's a mental, it's an emotional, it's a spiritual. All of these things are also aligned. So if you're breaking her down, but you're providing, if you're cheating, if you're doing all beating her, all these things abusive to her mentally, emotionally, physically, financially, spiritually, you're beating her down. That is not what security, stability, protection is. That's not what that is. And I think a lot of times men do not get that, and they need to get that, because you could be a provider and having sex with her, but if you're not doing all the other things, then that's a problem. You are not going to be her provider and protector in someone she sees as someone that is, no, she will be afraid of you. She will have trauma. She will have all these other things. She's not going to trust you. No, why? Because you're not doing the things that she needs to feel safe and secure. So now, husband, final meaning. This is where our insight comes in. A kinsman redeemer, meaning Boaz becomes her husband, her restorer of the land, her giver of children. He's going to eventually do that. The continuer of her family name. Why? The owner, the protector, the husband, and the redeemer. This is what he's going to become. Progression in Ruth's life. Stage 1, she's a gleaner. Relationship, she has no owner. Meaning survival and vulnerability. This is her mode. Why? There's no one there to take care of her. In Boaz's field, so she's doing it herself. Relationship, she's under the owner. Meaning protection begins, but the threshing floor, stage 3. Relationship requests covering, meaning seeking covenant. Marriage, Ruth 4. Husband, relationship, and meaningful restoration. Why owner equals husband matters. Why? Because in this system, a husband was not just romantic. This is what folks keep thinking. He was economically security. Legally, he was the authority. Socially, he was the covering. And he was also the source of legacy, meaning children and continuing the bloodline. Without a husband, there's no land access, there's no inheritance, and there's no future line. This is why when the husbands died out, they had to marry someone else, because if not, the land that they were on, the women, they weren't allowed to receive it. So it will be gone. So this is why this was needed. And I kept wondering, I was like, what is going on here? So now we see why. Spiritual meaning, owner equal husband, also points to belonging instead of being exposed. Covering instead of vulnerability. Covenant instead of a chance survival, meaning just here surviving in life. You're able to have, not survival, but to live a life, and to have not just be surviving, but have abundance, Why? Because God blesses it. Now, Ruth moves from working behind harvesters to being joined to the one who owns the harvest. Key insight, Ruth doesn't just find food. She finds the one who controls the source of her provisions. This is the point. Why? That's the shift from collecting leftovers to being connected to the provider. Bottom line, the owner ultimately becomes the husband in Ruth's story, but it unfolds step by step over time. The owner, the field, protector, redeemer, husband, and legacy. So now, when we look at this, we were missing some real stuff here. Accurate, balance. Okay, the short answer is yes, God revealed himself as a husband, because I'm like, is this why God reveals himself to us when we're out here like this as husband, owner, father? Partly to show protection, provision, and belonging, but especially for the vulnerable people, whether it's widows, single women, those who feel discarded. So he's not replacing human relationships. It is just a literal way. He is just filling the role of ultimate covering, care, and restoration. Why? Because biblical patterns we're noticing is for widows, we're vulnerable women. We repeatedly just out there. Whether you're single, whatever is going on. Psalm 68:5, father of the fatherless and protector of the widows. Isaiah 54:5, your maker is your husband. This is exactly the situation that Ruth was in. Why? Because she was a widow. She had no covering, so no provider. She was socially exposed to harm. So people was being able to assault her, do whatever they wanted to do, and there's no one there to protect her. So why God used these roles? Husband equal covenant and covering. In Ruth, a husband meant protection, provision, and identity, a future, children, and land. So when God says, I'm your husband, he means you are not abandoned. You are covered, even if no man covers you, even if you're discarded. Owner equals source and authority. Like Boaz owning the field, he controlled the resources. He could grant access and favor, or he could not. Now, God as owner means he controls provision, opportunities, and outcomes. So we're not dependent only on human systems. Why? Because you know how humans can be. Now, father equals identity and care. A father gives a name, a belonging, guidance, and protection. This is why the priest is so important to be in the home and to have that role and to have that masculinity there. For the people who feel rejected and alone, God becomes a stable source of identity. Why this matters, especially for the disregarded or discarded women. In biblical times, a woman without husband, father, and son was a serious risk for poverty, exploitation, oppression, starvation. That's exactly what Ruth's condition was in chapter 2. So God's message is, even if society leaves you exposed, I step in as your covering. Ruth, as the example, Ruth's past shows that there's progression. No husband, she's vulnerable. Enters Boaz's field, she's under care. She receives provision and protection. Boaz becomes a redeemer, a husband. She gains children and land and legacy. Behind this, God is orchestrating everything. So even before Boaz, God was already acting as her provider and protector. Deeper meaning, God fills the gap. Not replace the healthy structures, but he steps in where there is lack. But he also restores through the people, such as Boaz, sending them to you to be of help. See, it's about dignity, not ownership in a negative sense. Owner here does not mean control and or oppression. It means responsibility, care, stewardship over your well-being. This is what we need to understand, because a lot of times folks get it twisted. It's about belonging. The biggest issue for Ruth wasn't just food. It was, where do I belong? Who covers me? God answers, you belong to me first, no matter if a man or whoever has you. The balance of truth is important. God as a husband and father is not about dependency in a limiting way. It's about stability, identity, and security. And often he later provides real life restoration too to a real life husband such as Boaz. Now the bottom line is, yes, God presents himself as a husband, owner, and father to show that no woman or whoever, men, women, and children, especially those abandoned, widowed, and overlooked, is ever without covering, provision, and or belonging. Simple way to say it, if no one is protecting you, God says, I protect you. If no one is providing for you, God says, I provide. If no one is claiming you or loving you, he says, you are mine. This is what this is about, and it's very important to have that, because there's a lot of orphans out there, whether their parents are alive or not, people who are just disregarded. I felt like that myself when I came back. That's why I feel this story 100%, and the reason that I feel it is because along the way I was disregarded, and a lot disregarded me, and they enjoyed it, and they got off on it, and they enjoyed the heartache and pain, even with the sorcery, witchcraft, whatever they was doing, into my life. They were pouring into these evil, wicked things, and they meant it, and they wanted for my harm. God was there. This is why I'm where I am doing what I'm doing, because I already know how people, places, and things can be. Now the sad part of this is, instead of doing me that way, they could have chose a different way. We could have worked better, things could have been different, and life would have been a whole lot better for me and them. But they chose to do it the way they did, and in all actuality, it's going to come back on them. Now that's not a me problem, that's a them problem. Why? Because you could have chose to do things differently. You didn't have to be in opposition to me, whether you help me or not. You didn't have to be against me and be to the point where you want to see my life purposely going out your way to do harm to me. You could have left me be and just went on about your life. And even still, when I think about things, because God has had to work on me with this when it comes to certain things, people talk about revenge and all this other stuff, and my thing is justice. I've prayed and asked for justice, righteous vindications, judgments right. But whether they get whatever they get, which I know they will, and when they're going to get it and they're going to reap it more, but it's not about that. For me, it's about me being able to move forward and the blockages being removed, because whenever they get whatever they get, how to get it, it doesn't matter. For me, it's about me moving forward and being restored and healed, delivered, because all of that doesn't help my life in the sense of it doesn't move me forward. So at the end of the day, when I look at it, this is the way I look at it. And then whoever does whatever lasts as far as vengeance, you can get back, and then God's going to get you. So you, both of y'all will get God. So this is how this goes. So now what I wanted to know, when it comes to God's promises, hold on. Okay, so I had a couple more questions that I wanted to know, and I'm gonna try not to make it so long. I wanted to know, like, did God plan this when it was time for them? Now, not fully. They didn't fully plan it, but they were working. So we're gonna look at it. Ruth says, "Let me go to the fields." She chooses to work, and then in the text says she happened to come to the field of Boaz. From their perspective, it looks accidental, but just survival, meaning gleaning behind reapers. Okay, Naomi's awareness, partial insight. When Ruth comes home, Naomi recognizes Boaz's name immediately. So she says he's a kinsman redeemer. So this means Naomi didn't send Ruth there on purpose, but she understood the opportunity once it appeared. Okay. Later, 3, Ruth, Naomi does make a plan. Go to the threshing floor, approach Boaz properly, ask for covering, marriage redemption. This is later. So chapter 2 is not plain, but chapter 3 was intentional strategy. Now, was Boaz part of God's plan? Yes, completely. Even though it looks random, Ruth ends up in the exact field of Boaz, is from the right clan, has the legal authority, and has the right character, and that level of alignment is not by chance. This is why we have to pay attention to what happens. God will bring people in our lives, but we have to pay attention to who they are, because if not, then we will miss it. We will miss that opportunity that they're talking about. This is a level of alignment. It's not by chance. So gleaners versus reapers. Deep meaning. Gleaners meaning rule. Poor. She was vulnerable. She was behind others. She was picking up what was left. She was living day to day. No, these people would think of them as nothing. Represent survival mode, limited access, outsiders. Reapers, meaning the workers. They were paid, protected, and authorized. They represent stability, structure, and a system. So these are the people that worked in the field that he paid to go out there and, get his harvest. So the owner was Boaz. He controls the harvest. He gives access. He changes outcomes. He represents source, authority, and redeemer. So what's really happening? Human level, Ruth works. Naomi advises later. Boaz chooses kindness and real decisions and real actions. Divine level, timing aligns perfectly. Right place, right person, right time. Right law of gleaning and redemption already in place. God designed the system before they needed it. Was this always God's plan? Yes, but not forced. God didn't force Ruth into the field. He didn't force Boaz to act or to be kind or to love her. Instead, he created the laws, meaning glean and redemption. He positioned the people and opened the opportunity, and then they chose to act. See, this is what this is all about. That free will thing, people. Key balance is important. God's plan works through ordinary actions, not instead of them or in spite of them. Ruth, she worked, she gleaned. That's what she did. Ruth, Boaz obeys God's kindness and laws. Naomi, she uses wisdom and strategy, and together divine equals divine outcomes. Now, full flow, answering our question. Ruth, she chooses to glean. It's not a full plan, right? She enters the field. She looks like, chance. Boaz shows favor. That's his character, who he is. It's not fake. Naomi recognized opportunity. Naomi later plans next steps, meaning intentional actions. She sees there's something going on because he's already on his own, was, taken to her. Boaz fulfills the role as redeemer, and God's bigger plan unfolds in lineage and legacy. Bottom line, Ruth and Naomi didn't plan everything, but they responded wisely when the opportunity appeared. This is why when those doors open, when they're shut, but when they open, you got to walk through them, and you got to show up and show out. And the opportunity was already part of God's larger plan. So a simple way to say is Ruth acts as a gleaner, and Boaz provides owner, reaper side. Naomi guides the wisdom, and God orchestrates the whole system. Now, the one thing that I did learn and look at too, when it comes to being a steward, because she was gathering, but she was also storaging. Well, because this could have went either way for them, but at least they would have still had provision, meaning to eat and do whatever they needed to do. And it's so important, because even when we're in those areas of our life, we don't think that God is providing whatever little we have. Because I tell people all the time, people thought I was rich, had a lot of money. It wasn't that. I just knew how to handle my money to be a good steward. Why? Because I was always able to save. Why? Because saving is a way of being a good steward. You tithe, you do whatever, you give to whoever, because I tell people all the time, you can't be a child of God and not be a giver, and that's in any way, shape, or form. Now, I may not just usually go out to give to churches or this, but I give to people, places, and things as I see fit. Now, it depends, because they could stop God can show me, different things, that's going on with the people, whatever they're doing, if they're mooches, leeches, if they're lazy, because God is not going to just let you sit around and use people or be lazy and get over. Don't think he is, because he'll see that. So you can be a kind person, but God sees the motives from the takers, meaning the ones who's trying to get over. Like if you just somebody that, let's say you see a lot of people outside nowadays, and they're just out there and they're, begging for food or whatever. Now, understand there's some who really need it and want it, but then there's some who just out there every day. They don't have no plans on working or doing anything. That's a problem, And then if you're getting resources and you're not a good steward, that also becomes a problem. So God had to teach me this, as I'm going along, of who to get and how. Why? Because we're not sowing into, grounds that are not going to be, harvested. Meaning, yeah, we're going to sow, but we're not going to sow into leechers. We're not going to sow into people that's just going to be running around doing what they want to do as far as for the kingdom of, Satan, or whatever. No, we're going to be sowing into people, places, and things that's godly, wholesome, and, whatever. Why? Because that's what we're called to do, to be good stewards. Now, it's not to say that if these people out there, they're hungry. No. Because there are people out there who are generally trying, but they're just having a hard way to go at times. So, okay, cool. But there's people out there who are just there to get over, and there's a big difference. Now, so it's just saying that, and like I said, so I see the kindness of Boaz. I see his character as a man, wanting to help a woman, because nowadays we don't really see that. This is an issue, is a very big issue. We are in June. This is Father's Day month, along with they got the Pride Month, where they, celebrating Pride, and we need the men to be men and not women, and to lead and to provide and protect, and not give these excuses to be the priests of the household, to be the leaders, to actually want to love, to provide and protect women, not to use them, to discard them, to do all these defilements to them. That's not what this is about. So we really need to see the respect, the honor, the appreciation, the love for women and children, to where men actually want to love and care, because we see the culture of hating women, hating, children, hating responsibility, hate being a man, hate and wanting to be a woman. Well, a woman takes care of a man. God didn't put it that way. God did not design women to take care of men. And we see it. That is not the right, proper order. That is not a blessing. That is a curse. Why? Because women are not built to do that. Our bodies are not built to carry the weight, as we can see. We're there to help it, but we're not there to carry it all. And this become an issue and a problem all of the time. And when we see in this story, instead of pushing her while she was down, beating her, making things worse, he provided and protected someone he didn't even know. He just met, she's a Moabite, she's not even of them, she's from somewhere else. And this lets you know how, instead of oppressing her, using her, abusing her, exploiting her, taking what she went through and using it against her, he didn't do any of that. And see, we see this in a lot of men. Why? They're opportunistic. Instead of loving, they want to hurt, they want to tear down, they want to destroy. Instead of love, instead of build up, instead of having war and all these battles, no, to heal, to deliver and restore. This is what this is about. And until we get there, we're going to always have these back and forths. Why? Because until the man realizes that it is him that is supposed to stand up and take and be the man, and not sit here and give excuses as to why he don't want to do it, ain't supposed to do it, why he's supposed to be the table, like what she got to bring to the table, who is she? No. You are supposed to figure that out. You are supposed to do that. And when you don't, this is what we have. Single women, all of this stuff going on. And we see how even going up, the young men, they look at women for just sex, just this, just that. There's no covenant. There's no love. There's no genuine, I want to take care of you. I want to be there. I want to do anything. No. I want to get all I can from you. I want to use you. I want to mistreat you. I want to press you. I want to beat you, abuse you, take from you. This is what this is. That's sad. Oh, I want my children to be on welfare, and I want them to not have that. I don't want to take care of them. I want to complain about child support and all this other stuff. Come on now. You make children, take care of your children. You move on to to other women, and you give excuses as to why you can't take care of the one you had. Oh, because you don't like the mother, you broke up, you wanted to do other things. That is no, that's not an excuse. That child is there, they're not being taken care of, they're not being cared for. The mother is struggling, she's doing all you can or she can. You see these women out here are killing themselves. They're struggling, they're going through so much pressure from disease, sickness, all these things, poverty, struggle, no rest. Why? Because hair falling out, all kind of things. Why? Because of stress. Then no support, no this, no. And for us as a whole, when it comes to family and friends and all these things, we have to take accountability for the communities that we have, the state that we in. I hold the church responsible to come a bunch of people. Why? Because we're not here helping. We're here destroying and tearing down, especially when people are down. Instead of helping them, you're kicking them, you're oppressing them, you're making things worse. You're using their vulnerability, a time when they need the help, to exploit them the most, to use it against them. And that is the worst type of low you can ever have. A person who is already struggling, who already told you they went through this, they went through that, and you come along and you listen to everything they say, you gaslight, you lie, you do this because you want sex, you want money, you want a place to stay, you want whatever, you want control, you want them to do what you want to do, you want to get all you want from this person, you want to mentally abuse them, emotionally, physically, financially, and spiritually, just break them down to nothing. And you think that's called being a man, having control, having leadership, and this is something you run around and brag about. Oh, I slept with her, I did this. That is nothing to be proud of. What you are doing is bringing upon curses upon yourself. And then you wonder why when you actually get somewhere and you really find somebody and you think this is who you want to be with, you really think that God is going to allow you, after you have destroyed so many women along the way, had children, left them, and it was all about you and your selfish self. You didn't grow up, you became a little child, a little boy, you just want to sleep with everything you see and do whatever and have your money and don't share, don't take care of nobody and be selfish, and it's all about. And you really think for one moment that God is going to sit there and allow you to be blessed, move on, have a wonderful, smooth life? No. And the moment you get with the woman you think you want to be with in love, that's going to be the one going to do you the dirtiest. Why? Because you're going to pay for all the other women you done messed over. And this is why when some women come into some men's lives and I see how they do them, I be looking like, they had to have destroyed plenty of women, because that woman, she is just tearing their butts up for all the other rest of them. It's like he just love her, don't care, and whatever she do, they take it. And by that point, it be because it just, this is when the tables turn. Like I said, when it comes to these type of situations, when you see people who just want to destroy, who want to tear down instead of build and help do stuff, this is the problem, because of the envy, the jealousy, the covetousness, whatever it is that people have that you think you want or you want to do, or you don't want them to have, you don't want to see them happy. That is a you problem. That is an issue of your heart. You want to tear down and destroy people, oppress them for absolutely no reason at all. That is a you problem. If you are coming into people's lives knowing you lying, you want to steal, kill, destroy, your motives and your intentions is no good, and this is what you planning, and I don't even see how people do these type of things. Who has this type of time to do? But some people do, and this is how wicked and evil that they will be, to sit back, plan. They will, look into your life, go see other people, pay to have things done to you, all kind of foolishness. Monitor you, watch you, do all kind of craziness. For what? I sit back and I say to myself, they steal your hair, they steal this, they do this to go take to some, and then a lot of times it's the people that is closest to you that hate you the most. Your family, your friends, your siblings, your mama, your daddy. Sometimes they don't want you to have nothing. They go out their way to make sure you never have anything. No joy, no peace, no nothing from the time you're born. And you wonder why your life is so hard. And you sit there and you say that it gotta be more to this than this. It has to be. Because it shouldn't be that hard. Folks could go through things, but it shouldn't be that to that extreme. And if it is, that means something is not right. I know because this is stuff I've lived. And whether people know that I know, there's only some things God let me see and know, but some things he doesn't. To know that folks have done this to me intentionally. Not just one, many over the years. I didn't necessarily know it. God protected me from it just like he protected them and did. Exactly. And this is his promise to keep you in perfect peace. In spite of what's going on, you may not have the most, being faithful to him, loving him in spite of what people are doing, and still having a love for God, because no matter what went on, it could have been a whole lot worse. He didn't allow it to be worse. Even when it got to the point where they wanted to see me dead, they went out their way. They were happy, because people would think, after I tried to commit suicide, after all those things happened to me and I almost died twice, you would think my life would have gotten better. But no, in all actuality, it got worse after that. It got worse. You would have thought the people that were around me that were supposed to love me, provide, protect. No, it got worse. So that really lets you know how people really feel about you. And once you understand that, you can never unsee it. And once you get a grip of this is not a just now thing, this been going on, but I'm just now seeing it. But this is how they felt all along. It's sad. So when I sit here now, I'm going through this and God has let me, it's because I am in a position to where, and it's hard because I want to be happy. But do I trust people? Am I seeing things do I know that God can change it and do it? Yeah. Do I know he has promises and he kept me and all these things? Yes, I do know that. But am I just going to sit here and be like, oh, well, I'm just going to be naive about it and be like, oh, no. It could never happen. These people would never do this. They would never. No, I'm not going to be stupid. I'm not going to be slow. People think you're stupid and slow because you don't speak on everything. But sometimes you have to play the rule of the fool to the fool who think they fooling you. You sit back, you let people think and treat you however they think, because you get to see who they really are. When they think you are slow, when they think you're stupid, when they think they're getting over, when they think they're doing what they want to do or behind your back, and they think they're hiding their motives and intentions, and you clearly can see right through them, but because in their eyes you're beneath them, just let them think that. Don't argue with them. You will see who they are, because with all of what they're gonna do, you're gonna see it. It's no way for you not to see it. But then when I tell people that whatever hole and grave you dug for me, you're gonna find yourself in it and then some, then they get upset, because now only you and God know to what extremes you've been doing all what you've been doing. So when it's time for you to reap it, you're going to reap it. That has nothing to do with me. Now, all I'm saying when it comes to me and God is, I just want whatever they doing, fine, do it. You're going to deal with them. I just want to move forward. I just want all the doors that they have closed or was allowed to be closed to be open for me to move forward, because I could care less about them and what they're doing and who they with and what they got going on. That's not where I'm at. I just don't want them to stop me, whether they like me or don't like me, from moving forward and having something in my life, because I'm not out here stopping anybody from doing anything with their lives. So what is this all about? But see, God will use you sometimes to show people who they are and their real hearts and how evil and wicked they are. Because if you're there and you've done nothing to them and they just out of the blue want to be doing all of this stuff, guess what? That's a them problem. And when they have no reason, because they're looking for one, to not like you, to have an issue, to do something, to justify their actions, there's a problem with that. And like Haman, when he created that contraption for Mordecai and ended up getting hung himself, guess what? Because you reap more than what you planted. So for everyone who's been out there doing what they're doing, guess what? Your time is coming. And you will always reap more than what you planted. So all the hell you watched me go through, all the enjoyment, you was laughing, you enjoyed all of my pain, all my suffering, you hold on now. Because I hope that you can wear the shoes that I had to wear and then some. I hope you can stand in all that you planned for me. All that you had me go through, the tears, the pain, the heartache, all of this, I hope that you can stand and walk in just a little bit of it. Because if you cannot, I feel for you. I really pity you. Because I done prayed and asked God, Lord, by the time they finish, they going to wish they had, because they don't realize the demographics of what. When you plant a seed, you can plant a small seed and it sprouts up and become a whole tree. And that's what they mean when you reap, you sow. You always reap, tenfold, 70-fold what you planted. So now when it comes on you, I hope you're ready and I hope you're able to handle it, because don't be angry at me for what you did to me that you now gotta suffer through, that I already had to walk through. That God was there for me and he provided and protected me in spite of you. Now, it wasn't fair. I was hurt and I was angry, and he had to take the anger, bitterness, and the hurt out of my heart, because that takes time. You do get angry. You do want to, when your life is held up, when you can't move forward, when people are intentionally blocking and stopping your life. And whatever I did or didn't do to whomever, whenever, if I was in the wrong or right, for it to be to that extreme or for that, but God will allow it sometimes. And when he does, okay, it's for me and for that person to see our roles and situation in both of it. And guess what? It is what it is. So with that being said, when I look at this story, you know, whether it was men, women, whether it was family, friends, I see how things happen. And even in this instance, they were wrong for moving to Moab. They were wrong for all of that stuff. And God still had a redemption story out of it. So I believe, because I know that God provides. He's a promise keeper. He's an oath keeper. And he does it. It's not in our time. We may not like the outcome sometimes. We may not like waiting. We may not like the storm, the going through. But we got to sit here and have faith and know that he's going to do it. He's going to do it in his own time. And when he does it, it's going to be done, and it's going to make sense then when it's all said and done. It will all make sense, because whatever his reasoning is behind it, we don't know. We don't know. And until he reveals it, we just got to sit back and hold tight. Now, because it says God's promise, I want to explain this and break it down so we understand, because he provides and he protects. But his promises. Now, God's promise, before Ruth ever arrived, long before Ruth was born, remember he says he calls us before we were born, so he already knew my path before I was born. God had already established provision laws to leave the edges of the fields, those, for the poor, for the foreigner, for the widow. This was back in Deuteronomy, I think. Leviticus 19 and Deuteronomy 24, This is the gleaning system that God had already established. So Ruth steps into that. It was already there. Not random kindness, a promise built into society so that we would have stuff for the homeless, provision for them. And this is what this is about. This is why even the wicked, when they give to the poor, they are blessed. And they know, because they use godly systems to benefit themselves, because they know even though even though they use it for their own good and the evil, they know the system itself works because it's God-given system. Redemption system, kinsman, redeemer, God also established. A relative can what? Redeem the land, restore the family, rise up the offspring. This is exactly what Boaz become. Again, this is not random. It's a pre-planned system of restoration. But it had nothing to do with them in particularly. It was already there. So, two, God's covenant promise is bigger than Ruth. God's promise right is bigger than you. It's bigger than me. God promised Israel land, lineage, blessing, passed through generations, right? Even though Naomi's family and the line looked broken, empty, and finished, God's promise was still alive. How Ruth 2 connects the promise. The layers working together. The layer God promised, the past. What's happening? Lord's covenant already established. Ruth's action is the present. She gleans, works. She shows loyalty. Boaz's role fulfills both law and promise. Outcome, future, redemption, marriage, and child legacy. 4, the gleaners, reapers, and the promise. The gleaners is Ruth, represent people in need outside and surviving, but still included in God's promise. Reapers work inside the system, gather the main harvest. Owner, Boaz, has authority with God's system. He chooses to follow God's law and extend extra grace. He becomes the bridge between promise and person. Was this planned by God? Yes, at multiple levels. It's a structured plan he put in place. Gleaning laws were already in existence. Redemption laws were already in existence. The system was set up before Ruth was born, but it was needed. Positioning. Ruth arrives in Bethlehem during the harvest, ends up in Boaz's field. Boaz is qualified, available, and willing. That's the thing. You have to be all of those. Purpose is this leads to a child, meaning Obed, line of the king of David, eventually Jesus. Ruth becomes part of the messianic promise. Key insight. This is very important. Ruth is not just finding food. She's stepping into a promise that was already waiting for her. Human plan versus God's promise. Person is Ruth. Her role is to acts as a glean and stays faithful. Naomi recognizes and strategizes her. Later, Boaz obeys and extends kindness. God establishes a system and aligns everything. So Ruth did not plan the field. Naomi did not plan the encounter. Boaz did not expect Ruth, but God had already planned the structure, the timing, and the outcome, right? So past, present, and future events with promise. The past, God gives the law and the covenant. Israel established as a people. Present, Ruth 2, gleaning, promise, and action. Favor equals promise, becoming visible. Future is Boaz redeems Ruth. Child is born, legacy continues, promise become fulfilled in reality. What this means overall. God's promise includes systems, not just miracles, but laws, opportunities, and structures that protect the people. So this is how you change in all this. Because remember, she's going to bring in, remember he said the Moabites couldn't come in for 10 generations, but he brought it in because he made with them. Now, I don't know if that was a 10th generation. I wanted to look that up. God's promise reaches outsiders, meaning Ruth is a foreigner, she's a widow, and she's poor, yet she was included. God's promise unfolds through process, gleaning, favor, redemption, and legacy. Bottom final line is Ruth 2 shows that the God's promise was already in place through the Lord's timing and people, and Ruth stepped into it through simple action, turning survival into redemption and redemption into legacy. Now, simple summary, gleaning is God's promise at the lowest level. Boaz is God's promise through a person. Redemption is God's promise fulfilled, and legacy is God's promise continuing. Remember, because at the lowest level was gleaning, because she was homeless. They was, just coming back into town, and they although they had somewhere to live, they didn't have provision, so meaning food, so and basic necessities. And this is what this is all about, because when we look at lives in all of us, the basic necessities is what we're supposed to be given. And although these structured systems that are in place here because of man, not God, that they put in place, they've taken everything God has given us for free: food, water, clothing, shelter, the simple basic things. The land and the earth and the land is the fullness thereof. God gave all of us this. But we see man's system is they took it over, Satan and man, and they decided who was going to have what, and that we got to pay for everything. So now we got to work, we got to do it. This is what this is happening, okay? So this is why this is an issue and a problem. And instead of us getting together and not being individualized, okay, and working against each other, and instead work together against those who want to oppress, we fight amongst ourselves. This is the problem. Now, moving forward, we know that it already says in the Bible that these things are going to happen in the times. When the beast system comes about, we're going to have a better way of loving each other and being there for each other, meaning good stewards over whatever we get. Why? Because whatever God gives us, we're going to have to be storing these things. Why? For the time when the famines come, so that we'll have provision. This is why Joseph was raised up in a time. Why? Because at that time, he was the best person that fit. Why? Because he saw how to store in a time of plenty and to have when the famine came. So when we look at, and I remember we did this thing about at the end times, who would we want to have if we stranded somewhere, and picking certain people, because remember, you can't live and be and do everything on your own. And this is the sad point about reality of the world. When we think about, we just need one person. No, one person can't do everything. And me shutting you down and shutting you up and stopping you from living your life and doing what you need to do, and whatever gifts and talents you have, taking them or wanting them and distorting them and wanting them for myself when God didn't give it to me, and not wanting you have, that's not going to help benefit me. Because see, instead of us thinking, okay, well, I'm going to be this, whatever God called me to be, you be whatever God calls you to be and have, and we work together and we get these things together so that we all can win. Instead of just one or two people winning, everyone wins. Instead of us working against each other, lying, stealing, killing, cheating each other, having hidden motives and agendas, about how to hurt each other and harm each other instead of to help each other, when we all need the same basic things. We all need food, clothing, shelter. We all need to be healthy, meaning having health care and all these things. So if we're taking them from each other and not from the ones who's actually doing the things that's to us, that's a problem. That doesn't make any sense to me. But see, we stay fighting these small battles and we're not winning, instead of trying to look towards winning the war. The war is we all need these things. How 5 people live together and everyone wants to move out and get their own place and pay mortgage and bills by themselves? Makes no sense. When you live together, you can build and grow together. You can save. You can have some stuff. But when you're all somewhere separate doing other things, that's going to be a problem. Because we're all separately paying all these bills and doing all this stuff instead of living communally. Now, living communally means for us to live together, work together, and build each other up, not to tear each other down. But see, we have got so accustomed to culture and what goes on in the world today that if you have this, I have to hate you, do voodoo on you, and take it from you. Because instead of collaborating, we want to tear each other apart. That's crazy. That doesn't make any sense. And it doesn't help neither one of us, because God gave you your gift, gave me my gift, gave you your talent, gave me my talent. Why? For us to work together, not to work against each other. One hand washes the other, and they both wash the face. This is what this is about. God created us all different with our own stuff to work together, because this is like a body. Everything is intricately needed, the biggest and the smallest, all the same, all alike, and in between, needed in order for these things to function. But if not, one thing is all because this one thinks they're better than that one. This is a problem. That's a problem, and we need to stop seeing it that way. And instead of working together, learning from each other, and doing what needs to be done, because if that does not happen, understand, you see how this, with the gleaning, with the children, the bloodlines, all of that, if everyone dies off, everyone dies off. The bloodline dies, the children die, the families, they die out, literally die out. And if you want to establish the legacy, the legacy for the family, all of that to continue on, you have to continue to work together to build and grow and love each other, help each other, be family, support each other, not tear each other down and shoot the family down and bring curses upon each other and ourselves and our bloodline and tear each other apart. No, build, grow, and help. Instead of sitting back watching somebody and be happy and being a part of them falling and being torn apart, why didn't you come and, like he did, help? Especially when I look at a lot of things and I say to myself, people who know me know that I've been around and I've always been of help to them, especially a person that been nothing but good to you. Why would you want to destroy them? Why would you want to see them in a shelter, poor, without this, without that? Why would you want to do that? So for me, it makes no sense. And when I look at this is why I have to separate myself. This is why I'm secluded in there, because it just makes no sense to me. I cannot be around and get with people that do stuff like that. I cannot, because I just can't continue to do that. And if that's the cycle that you're in, I need you to stay far away from me. I don't need you around me. Because this second go round of my life, I'm not going to continue in those same repeated cycles of destruction in my life and dysfunction. I'm just not doing that anymore. So if that's what you like and what you want, then you do that over there, not over here with me, because I'm not doing that anymore. If you're not building, encouraging, uplifting, trying to work together to build and grow and have something, if we're going to be arguing about who's this and who's that and who's better, who got the better house and the car and the money and the this and the that, and if we're attacking, I'm not doing that. I'm mad because you did this and got that. No, I want to be with people who want to work together and make things happen together, not fighting against each other. That makes no sense to me. I'm not doing that. We're not building that way. We're tearing down and destroying. No, a house divided against itself, it shall not stand. We already know that. We see it. It is what it is. But anyway, I'm going to end this one. I know it was kind of lengthy. I hope that this is a blessing to you guys. This is Ruth, chapter 2. And as we can see, all of the things that God lined up for them is just such a blessing. And God had to take them from where they were to bring them here in order for it to be this way. Because where the Moabites was, they weren't practicing and they weren't doing this. So all of that had to go so they could come back in and do this. And this is a blessing for them, you know. And whoever is moving forward with their lives and they're trying to move forward and be blessings and be blessed and to be a blessing, this is what you need to be doing. Because you don't want to continue doing, no. You know, that's just not going to work. And so like I said, Bruce is not broken. I hope that this message was a blessing to you and to anyone else. Like, share, comment, subscribe to the channel. Like I said, my Cash App is in the bio thing. Like I said, at this point, I already know, because when it comes to God, he's going to do it on his own time. I'm not worried about people, places, things being a blessing to me, but they will wish they had when God does do what he's going to do in my life. But it'd be far too late by then, because it's like, like I said, I'm just not about to be begging, pleading, and all chasing. I'm not doing that. I'm going to be here, I'm going to do what I'm doing, and I'm going to move forward. Either you going to be a part of a blessing, a part of a blessing to my life, wanting to see me move forward and grow and have and build, or you're not. And if you're not, you can stay away from me, because I'm not doing all that. And if that means you can't support me, you don't like seeing me happy, winning, or none of that, like some people can't stand to see you happy, you give them a seat way over there and let them watch you from way back where, and don't be a part of your life, because nobody's going to keep doing that, because life goes on. It's too short and it goes on, and nothing's going to stop me going over, in, around, through, whatever, to get to where I need to be. And that's just that. And God is backing me. He's there. He's doing what needs to be done for me. He's walking my path out for me. And as long as he's doing that, providing, protecting me, it is what it is, and that's where I am with my life. And I don't care who you are, where you are, what you are to me. I am not about to let anyone get in the way of what God has for me and what he put into me, what he has for my life, and what my assignment and my purpose is here. I'm going to fulfill whatever he has for me to fulfill. Ain't nobody stopping nothing. People, place, a thing. And that's just that. And it's going to be fulfilled. And that's it. And there's nothing anybody can do about it. And it will be in his time. And it's not about me. It's not about my life. It's about him and the glory. And if he uses my life to do it, to show even those outside ones who are in this stuff to stop, because God can redeem them too. And if they would see and notice and understand that if they would stop like she did and put away all that wickedness, then he could redeem them too. But you got to stop doing what you're doing. You got to repent, and you got to ask him to forgive you and truly mean it, and turn away from it, the wicked ways. But until folks want to do that, it just is what it is. And like I said, God can redeem. As you can see, they were into sorcery, they were into witchcraft. This is what they did, and she came out of it. That says a lot. And God bless her extremely for it. Her life looked totally different after she left all of that alone. That in itself should tell you a lot. But anyway, with that being said, I'm out of here. Bruised and not broken. Like, share, comment, subscribe to the channel. Be blessed in Jesus' name. And I'm out. To the next one.